Hi everyone and welcome. It's Lavender Sky Panther. Today is Thursday, March 30th, 2023, and this is show number 185 called Big Skyfoot, Cloaking Bigfoot and Cloaking Craft. And it's a special show today because actually I set out to merely record the rest of March for my own channel with my own photos and video footage. I was planning on doing March 12th through now. But then as I was digging through my footage, I remembered that I had done analysis just because I was drawn to do it on a different channel's footage. So it's the Facts By Howtohunt.com with Steve Isdall. And he posted a show called I Have Objects Thrown at Me While Sharing Emails Again. And he showed he had a freeze frame, as you see on the screen with the red circle. If you look in the lower left-hand corner here, he has a circle around one object. So, presumably it was like a stick flying out of, there's a dark timber tree line over here. And presumably this just came flying out. So he, was having objects thrown at him. So usually in the world of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe, Yowie, there are many names for this people. And yes, they're a people, Sasquatchy people, not an animal. But anyway, he was having objects thrown. So I was just curious. And if you've followed my channel for any length of time, you know that what I do is look up in the skies, look for anomalies. It's often cloaking craft. And I, do a lot of enhancements and get at what is going on in there. I highlight it and pull it out by editing attributes of the photo, which I just call enhancement. And that just means I'm editing attributes such as color, saturation, brightness, contrast, and sometimes I play around with sharpness or warmth, but that's about it really. And so I'm just upping or lowering the levels of those things. And through that process, we really get at what's going on, even in the murkiest, so to speak, of skies. So of course, my interest was piqued when I saw what is that object, right? In the lower left-hand corner. Well, I was in store for a huge shock, and that's why I'm sharing this show. And I hope Steve has a chance to take a look at this because it was pretty eye-opening what was discovered. So as I was moving along to the right, I'm just identifying areas that I'm watching. So not only that area of that quote-unquote stick or whatever it was, but all of a sudden stuff got started to get revealed in the enhancement process of these misty-like forms back here actually turn out to be what I'm calling Sabe 1 and Sabe 2, because Steve uses the term Sabe, derived from a Native American respectful term, supposedly, for Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or Yowie, or however you want to call it. But anyway, so I saw two forms emerge through the process. You're going to see that coming up in the show. And then also off in the horizon, of course, something seemed a little off to me, like there could be cloaking craft in there. And, as you see to the right, sure enough, with some enhancement, and I go into detail on this, much more detail in the show, yes, you do see some cloaking craft. Now, up here, I'm giving you a little preview. So as we go up, we're going to be looking to the left. This is just Steve turning to leave and get his equipment to leave out of the area once the objects are being thrown. And so as you follow the back of his jacket, there's a little bit of a bump out from the jacket. And so if we go up to the upper left, you see that bump out on the jacket. That's where I see, the first Sasquatch form and then the second one over here. And when we look to the middle photo, I inadvertently drew the head in the wrong place. Actually, if you look at the little bump here, the head is going to be right over that little ridge or bump in the jacket. So coming up in the show, pay attention to that. Okay, then to the right, this little preview of, here's that, again, that bump in the jacket where my cursor is. There's the head with two eyes, and there's the other one. Now there's another one, Sabe number 2, Sasquatch 2 is across from this one, and you can see the eyes as well in some of the enhancements. So let's get into it, shall we? Here we go. Before we do, though, I have one little starter slide that I had to bring in from my own Lavender Sky Panther show number 160 because I took the time not only to go purchase the $6 Million Man episode 3 or season 3, where they had a 2-part Bigfoot series, I think called The Secret of Bigfoot. And of course, just getting into the whole Sasquatch topic, I guess I need to back up a second. Yes, I have had my own experience. I shared my story before finding Steve's channel. I have the pleasure of coming into knowing a great group of researchers, at least, one of them anyway, who works with them, the team. Part of the team is Sarah Bignell at Yowie Central. And I have a couple of interviews with her on her podcast. It was a community radio show turned podcast now called Yowie Central. And I had shared my story over there, so I do know, yes, they exist, they are real, they have amazing capabilities. But now with, sorry, and then an associated YouTube channel, an incredible one to go check out while we're talking about this topic, is also Yowie Hunters Witness Reports, and that's AYR, Australian Yowie Research Team. And they have some incredible work. Go look at their YouTube channel. Again, it goes by the name Yowie Hunters Witness Reports. And when it says Yowie Hunters, it just means hunting as in looking for them, obviously not going to harm them. So I highly recommend you check things out over there, because it's great to compare notes, not only what happens on Steve's channel. If you're not aware of what Steve does, go check out his, the factsbyhowtohunt.com. He reads stories from people who have had encounters and experiences with these beings. Also, other kind of supernatural phenomenon sometimes pops up through those stories as well. And what's interesting is that it's a lot of hunters, who are out in the woods, in the forest, in the bush, in the brush, and they, are out in really remote areas. And yes, they're having encounters and they're speaking up. And it's just a beautiful catharsis and therapy for those of us who've had the experience, who knew that if we ever told it to someone, you'd just be kind of laughed or labeled crazy, or kind of just have a negative pushback from it all. So a lot of people have stayed silent for decades and decades. And so anyway, Steve offers a nice platform and opportunity for people to share their story. He simply reads it straight out. You can leave your name or put anonymous, whatever you like. So check that channel out if you haven't. I highly recommend it as well. So anyway, I am posting this show, and again, hopefully Steve can get an eye on it, or anybody in the How to Hunt family can bring it up and send others here to take a look at it, since I did the time to do the analysis. But anyway, I also took the time to break down this TV show. So spoiler alert, if you want to go watch the 2-part Secret of Bigfoot episode on $6 Million Man somehow, you might want to skip over this slide. Otherwise, I'm just going to do a quick little summary of the little storyline here. So we have the first scene is we've got a backlit Bigfoot played by Andre the Giant. Then we have a team with, the $6 Million Man. Actually, I'll leave it to you to go look up the whole backstory of who he is and what he does. But anyway, that's Steve on the right, the lead figure of the TV show, and his boss to the left. And this is a scientific researcher, and of course, he's the Native American, supposedly First Nation representative on the team. And of course, they've got to stereotype it, and he's got his beads around his neck. But anyway. Then, of course, they stumble upon and find this foot, and there's a lot of drama going on through this whole thing. They have the plaster cast. He's explaining about the Bigfoot. And then, of course, we see our first scene of Bigfoot running through their encampment where they're doing the, I guess they're studying seismic activity with earthquakes. And so Bigfoot comes in and rocks the, trailer, and all this kind of stuff happens. And then, the star of the show meets Bigfoot, and we move on, and we find out that there's a group of aliens hiding out, and they have a base in a mountain, and they have a bionic Bigfoot, which is what he turns out to be, and he's supposed to be like a decoy and scare people away from their encampment and protect this group of aliens. Now, what's interesting is, through a whole host of circumstances, Steve ends up, the lead character, Steve Austin, ends up in speaking with the team of scientists and other people of these aliens, over here. And then this guy shows up with this little device, and with a flip of the switch, he goes invisible and seemingly teleports. Now, Steve Austin, who has bionic abilities, he looks with his bionic vision and can see the guy just strolling through, but to the naked eye, he's at a different frequency and you can't see him. So that was interesting, because that little topic has come up a lot in this community, if you are at all interested in the topic of Bigfoot and ETs, aliens, and whatnot. Anyway, long story short, and more drama ensues, and then the bionic Bigfoot needs to bring Steve back, to the outside world after his memory has been wiped by the aliens. Another interesting thing, go check out the little device they use to clear his memory so he doesn't remember these alien folk. And anyway, that's actually, I didn't think I had it here. It's here. It's like this little metal band on his head. Anyhow, it was actually a scary episode to me. I happened to be really young when I saw this first air. And I was thinking that, Chewbacca from Star Wars was my first exposure to a Bigfoot. Obviously we're looking at a Sasquatch there. But then no, I remember this came even before, 3 years before. And I remember being terrified because the opening scene, they just show his furry legs, hairy legs, walking through the forest and some growling. So anyway, it is pretty comical if you've heard the real recordings of real Sasquatch, such as the Sierra Sounds, or on Steve's show on the Facts By Howtohunt.com. He has a couple of episodes, well, many, but there are a couple that really stand out, which are pretty astonishing when you hear the vocals, and just not the vocals in themselves, but the magnitude and the power with which they, what do I want to say? It's not ring out, just blast out, through the outdoors is pretty intense. Anyway, you might want to look around on his channel too for some of those sound recordings. Now, I'm going to leave this for you all to just have a read if you want. Again, this came from my earlier show, number 160, where I go over this in detail. This is just touching on, excuse me, that some people are going to try to remake it or want to remake this classic TV series, and they want to call it the $6 billion man, something like that. Anyway, they're toying around with that for whatever reason, and I explained that in the other show. All right, so let's move on. So now I'm just using this kind of as, I'm going to come back to this still photo of Steve's over here at his channel, or I will have little markups on it, and you're going to see it pop up a few times throughout the show just as a reference, because we're going to, look at the original, and then we're going to do enhancements on it. So already on the upper left, I see something worth investigating further, and then up to the right too, because it just looked odd, what's happening up in here. So as I was going through, and again, these are the target areas of where I'm going to be looking. And here we go, where we have, the craft in the upper left. And I'm just, again, showing this is where I saw beings or forms starting to emerge. Now, again, apologies, I put the head is here. It actually comes up above that little bump in Steve's jacket. And we're going to keep our eye. This is actually the back of Steve with a little bump out on the jacket as he is turning to leave the scene after objects are being thrown at him and he's not getting a good vibe, and so he's about to leave. So our little reference is this little bump out, notch out on his jacket, because the top of the head of the first Sabe or Sasquatch is going to be right over there, as you're going to see. So I'm zooming in, and that's why I say my apologies. When I drew these red lines and such, that I was on my handheld device, just on a little phone, and I missed the mark here. So the head of this first Sabe is actually up here. If you look real close, you can see 2 points of lighter area. Those are going to be his eyes. And then when we look over on this side, same thing. If we come across like the same latitude, you're going to start to see like 2 eyes pop out. But anyway, we're going to get there. See, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, we're seeing the top of a conical head and 2 eyes looking this way. And then we start to see feet and whatnot. And then over here, there's also 2 wider points. Those are eyes as well. All of this is going to get clearer and clearer as I walk you through the progression of enhanced photos. So we look to the right already, we see some 2 white points, and again, that's a face or a head of a second Sabe. And to the right, here again, you can see the conical head and 2 points of light. And then this might be the bottom of the hand, or it might be here. We're going to look at that in a minute. And again, we've got the feet. Now, it also looks like the feet could be standing straight up and down. And I look at this too, like what's going on there. So it could be one little Sabe standing in front of a bigger one who's standing straight up, and then the other one starts to illuminate or go into cloaking state, in a different way. Or it's just a funny trick of something, but the real Sabe is just going to be this white portion. Again, I'm catching him in a cloaking state. Now, this just totally blew me away. When I got to this level of enhancement on the upper right-hand corner, because it was here only for the first time where I'm like, what's all this bitmappy stuff? And then I'm like, oh, holy crap, look at this. It's a head with 2 eyes, and that's a Sabe. And when I look over here too and see it, repeated, that they're looking at each other, I thought, oh my good God, that's what we're looking at. And the bitmappiness is just what we're seeing from the interference or the way that the cloak, it generates, either in some cases like ripples, or in this case it's all bitmappy, very electronic looking. So we go down to the lower left. I'm just zooming in bigger on that one. We're just going to look at Sabe 1 for now. And then with more enhancement, again, we can see that unmistakable conical shape of the head and the 2 eyes if you follow my cursor. And then, we have the bump out of the jacket, so we kind of miss seeing more of it. I don't think that's an accident. I don't know. I think these very intelligent beings even know what they're doing when it comes to their line and what I want to say, the line of view, to the camera itself. I have to believe that maybe they planned that in, not to be fully seen. But anyway, we look to the right, and this is just my really crude sketch. Again, when I was on my phone, I just did that with my finger. So we're going to go in and look at everything with more detail and precision. But this was just enough to kind of rock my world and say, oh my God, we need to really look at this and break it down in the lavender sky panther style and tradition. So first off, I'll just say down here in the text that I put there, one Sabe standing still in front of another walking Sabe maybe. So I'm saying maybe there's some shorter Sabe just standing straight up and down while the one in the back is starting to walk. You'll see why I'm going to say that in a second. So one more time though, I'm blowing this up really big. And as I say with every of my other normal shows, I'm narrating this show on a laptop screen, which is much bigger in scale. And so things are going to look very different when I start to narrate this way than if I was looking down at a handheld device that's much smaller, like thumbnail size. So you out there might be saying, oh, why is she not pointing this out? I see it so clearly. It's because I'm looking at a bigger format, and vice versa. You might be looking down at your handheld or a smaller thumbnail size, scaled device, and you'll miss stuff that you can't see on a bigger screen. So anyway, I just want to put that out there. So if you happen to see something that I don't, and it's interesting, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. All right, so here we go again. I'm just calling it Sabe 1 over here and Sabe 2 over here. All right, let's keep looking. Okay, now this is just different upping and lowering of levels. I do it manually. I don't just use a simple filter. I don't have a lot of really cool filters. I know a lot of you probably have them out there. I don't, so I do it the old-fashioned way, but I like to do it manually and just up things incrementally or lower them incrementally and play around with things. So here it starts to really emerge, for me anyway. I hope you see it too. On the right-hand side, I see tiniest bit of a neck. I think, if you've studied Bigfoot at all, most everyone says there's as good as no neck. It goes straight into the shoulder, like very built up shoulder. But here we don't have benefit of seeing anything because there's a bit of a glare out. But we do see, to me, that's a very clear conical head, and that these are two eyes, like you would see eye shine at night. And over here on the left, same thing. This to me is a face that's turned to look at this one. So anyway, we see a bit of an arm and a hand, coming down here. It also might be holding something. And we have what I think is the shin, the lower leg, and then the foot, the white, when you look at the whiter portion. Now, when I'm looking on this bigger screen, I even also see kind of toes delineation. And this would imply that, this is another part of this being, and maybe his leg is coming back this way. But again, with the jacket kind of interrupting the scene, the back of it, it's kind of hard to see exactly what's going on here, so we have to guess a little bit. But absolutely, this upper part is a head and eyes and a face. Here I'm putting, again, playing with the enhancement in my special way. And again, I kind of see, partial side of the head, conical top, and the eyes. And now I'm saying eyes here too, because now we're even getting different color signature on the, since these digital cameras have such a great range on the photo and light sensitivity, and especially when we play around with the enhancement. Look at, those are eyes, and they're also, we're talking about a being that's about the same height. Now this one on the left, it's hard to tell with everything going on. I can't tell if this one also has a conical form to head, or it's being hidden by something else, veiled by something else in the background, or if this is a slightly different type of Sasquatch with a rounder head. Both exist. So see what you see in here. Gets a little muddled, but to me there's enough to identify that we've got two different beings, two individual Sasquatch, and they're cloaking. Anyway, so excuse me, on this one we see if you follow my cursor, that looks again like the arm coming down, maybe the hand, and maybe it's holding something. And we have a leg, bent back this way, and another foot, turned this way. So that's what I see, and here we see that a little bit more clearly. So I did go ahead and label it conical shaped head, eyes, chest, the front of the chest. This is again the profile of the jacket we're seeing, but I do see a forearm. This might be the hand holding an object, or in another view we're going to see that the forearm actually might extend much lower and with the hand down here. I'm not sure which one is the real thing, but we've got a couple of options to play with. Either way, everything puts everything anatomically in the right place for it to be a Sasquatch. We have the the front of the leg here, and a foot. And again, there's a delineation of toes, even a little bit if you really look, especially on a laptop screen. And again, it could be, something happening here, and it's glowing and all of that, because we're seeing, whatever the camouflage technique is, and they go into some type of a mode that it does manipulate energy. So anyway, let's keep going. In this case, it's just looking at it in a slightly different hue, but this is the one where I start to see, not only the head and the eyes, but then this one, if you look down here, see this dark object down here? That might actually be the hand poking out and the forearm here. So the other version I showed you put the hand here like holding an object, but that's probably a little too high. This is probably the real story, where the hand is down here and the forearm is much longer. But again, we have to put that up for conjecture. But at least we're in the ballpark for there being a being with a head and arms and feet and whatnot. Now, I put the question again here. Are we looking at the white part as being its legs and it's in motion? Or is it really just standing there? And these are the bottoms of its legs, and its feet are kind of positioned, splayed, kind of like a little bit like a duck. Maybe it just froze and is standing there. I kind of think it might just be standing, because if you look at the alignment at the top of its head and its eyes, the way the face is facing, I think it might just be standing there. And that, again, these are like the feet splayed out. But then, I'm not sure then what this is and why that looks like something walking. Anyway, it could also be, like I said, one little being standing in front, just standing still, and this one starting to move, in a different direction. See what you see there. Okay, again, this is just my crude, sketch overlay. I'm going to move on, but, it just shows you where the eyes would be and, part of the face. I'll keep moving. Okay, now I'm going to go back and forth on this if you look at the bottom of the slide. So again, is this one big being just standing there straight because it's freezing and not moving while the camera is being adjusted? Or is something, is it already on the move? Or is there another being that's on the move behind this one standing straight? Or is there another little squatch in front and it's staying put while the bigger one's moving? Oops. So anyway, we've got plenty of scenarios to look at and think about. Like always, I just say this is what I see, and I invite you to see what you see, of course. And again, if you feel like it, leave a comment in the comment section below. All right. Now, this is, again, our little placeholder. So now we're going to look at the upper left-hand corner at the UFO or craft portion of what we're going to cover. And then after this, we'll go to the right and see what's happening over on the right-hand side. All right, so to his back right side, we'll look at this. And again, there's some kind of tree line. I think he said a dark tree line over here from whence this object comes flying out, presumably a stick. But after, I go through this, you're going to see it's not a stick. All right, so here it is with some enhancement in the upper left. And not only does this thing take on a very, different shape than what was expected, there's also some dark object down here too, and I'm not really going to cover that right now, but it is an object that's not a tree. So then we look to the right and we're zooming in a little bit more, doing a little more of the enhancements, and again, there is something happening down here. And then we look at the bottom, and I'm zooming in on this thing again, trying to get more clarity at what it is. Now, what I do get is there's absolutely an object here. This, where it starts to look fuzzy, I call that cloaking material plasma. It just means something heavier and denser than just water vapor, and it clings well and cloaks things well on these cloaking craft. And then also, we see how true and dark this body is, even though I blasted the contrast all the way out pretty much, and that still holds true. So that means there is an object there. Now, this whole area is going to get real interesting real quick. There's a lot of parallel pipes, absolutely horizontal, and even pipe ends. And that's what I suspect to be the generators of this plasma. And I've noticed that with a lot of the craft that I've documented on my show. I'm starting to really see machine parts popping out. And what's notable is all the pipes all over these things that have to be the things generating the artificial cloud that I've been seeing time and time again. Also, the clouds look different. They don't look natural. You look around the perimeters of the edges, they're frayed. The consistency of the cloud is not like of the past, of decades past, of me being on this planet observing clouds. So there's a lot to it, and I invite you again to look if you're new to, you know, some of my past shows to get caught up on what I'm seeing with all of that. All right, so let's take this. We're going to zoom in even more. And here we go where I'm talking about these perfect lines that are straight across, that are horizontal. And then, you know, this, if you follow my cursor, this is a circular form. It looks like the end of a pipe with another straight line and a hole at the end coming out of it. And here you actually even see plumes of this, what I'm calling plasma, kind of wafting or wafting out of it. Now the question is up here too. Look at this perfect white point in here as well. And that can either be lights, you know, actual lights, points of light, or protruding objects that are just showing up differently because they're getting some kind of reflection off of them. So, you know, stuff to think about, see what you see. I also want to note that this form almost looks organic, like an organism. Like if this were the head and the neck and the body and like fins or flippers, you know, like a tail, a split tail at the end is what it looks like to me. And I have seen this almost exact same form pop up in one of my other shows and around definite cloaking craft. So I think this is either, could even be some kind of bioorganism or organism, or is a cloaking craft with engineered technology made to emulate an organism, a more freeform organism. See what you think about that. Anyway, I just put down here, you know, points of light or protruding objects, and down here, true, like horizontal, parallel pipes with something coming out of it, suspected means of cloak creating the cloaking. Okay, now we're going to go to this one too, slightly different color wave, just to, you know, sometimes taking truer colors out helps us, and heading more toward black and white mode helps our brain see stuff in a different way. So, but once again, you know, we've got, that looks like a protrusion here, and and these look like they're coming out toward us. They also may be lit protrusions. That's a whole nother option. But here we go. Look at this. If you follow my cursor, straight horizontal line and a straight horizontal line below it, coming in a way that wouldn't be a stick and is clearly not a cloud. So anyhow, we also have a perfect round circle if you follow my cursor. So there's a lot here showing technological parts and pieces. This is coming across horizontal as well. And then we have the end of a pipe here. So anyway, see what you see. But I see something coming out of this pipe end. All right, now we're going to be looking at, let's see, what are we looking at? Okay, now we're going to be looking at the upper right-hand corner. So above this tree line here, it just looks really mysterious, and it looks very suspicious up here to be cloaking craft. And sure enough, with enhancement, here's that tree grouping, or mountain, whatever, you know, top of the hill grouping. I start to see, I also look at color signatures and light sources heavy in my regular sky shows. So here we're looking, and look what happens. We get really bright points of illumination. Other parts are dark shadow. We start to see structure, especially over here where you see my cursor. Also kind of a dark egg-shaped object over here. Also holes, you know, looks like more ends of pipes. So with some more enhancement, this gets a little bit mappy and fuzzy because that's part of the cloaking side effect as well. I think some of these, either side effect or intentional cloak method, is some of these craft, I think either it's just their natural power source doing it, or they have a way to scramble frequencies to make the sky look choppy and fuzzy to the naked eye. And then, you know, it's a great way to cloak multiple or huge object behind it. So I'm not sure if we're looking at one enormous object or we're looking at several different objects, so we'll keep looking. But for sure, when we look up here, we have a perfect curve, and then we have another perfect curve right above it. And that tells me if we have two concentric curves, you know, a little space in between, but real nice, pretty sharp line. And, you know, I know there's a little kind of fuzz out, intentional there, but you can see it enough, you can make it out enough to know there's intelligent design going on here. Also, there's like these points, 1, 2, 3, seem pretty regularized. Later on, we're going to see like a straight line, and we're going to see like a little capsule-like thing going on up here. Anyway, let's move along. I guess I should have advanced this slide already, but anyway, when I started just initially doing this on the phone, again, these notes were from my phone, a smaller handheld device. I was just trying to flag stuff pretty quickly, like, wow, something's going on over here. So now I'm back to the computer to edit and take a look at this stuff. And here we can clearly see there's something spherical protruding out. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it on my bigger screen. There's the end of a pipe here, one here, and one here. There are 3 holes, very clear. So we know we're dealing with technology, you know, advanced technology, And I'm going to say yes, it's ET technology. Now, maybe humans or military or somebody's collaborating with some of these groups. But for the most part, I'm going to say it's just straight up ET. Now, it also could be interterrestrial. And I do support the inner Earth. I don't want to say theory, inner Earth possibility. I've been shown some pretty concrete things in meditation and in other ways to support that. Yes, absolutely, there's inner Earth. But anyway, we'll leave that one up for another time, and I do cover it in other shows as well. So anyway, let's keep moving along. And here, I'm sorry, we're going to move back. We're going to look up here at this object, and now it's kind of in shadow. But we have a clear line up here, and that's where I'm saying it's still fuzzy and, murky and bitmappy because of the camouflage technique. Again, sending out electromagnetic waves or some kind of wave disturbances to make it look all choppy like this. So we can't make out anything too, crystal clearly, but we can see bits and pieces of things enough to get the gist. So right here, there's like two little notch outs, and this is, I was saying concentric curve, but it's also kind of straight. And there's a straight line over here, there's a straight line back over here. And whatever the case, if we just look at color signatures, how do we have a burst of bright light over here and then separated of like a darker area and then bright over here too? That doesn't happen if we just have a typical sunset or moonrise or anything. So there's definitely cloak and craft activity going on all over the place over here. All right, well, that's the end of the show for now. I did want to present it a little more clearly. I hope you can bear with me. But I just want to say thanks for digging into things here a while. This is just a close-up shot of a coconut palm tree trunk, and with a lot of holes done by a woodpecker or different types of species of woodpecker. And I was putting this in actually before I knew I was going to do exclusively an analysis on the howtohunt.com the Facts By Howtohunt.com show. I was going to pair this with my other regular show, but I'll leave it in here right now. And I will just say it's a little bit of a nod to the whole Bigfoot, Sabe, Sasquatch, Yowie topic when you know that they bang on trees. So anyway, I'll leave it there for now. So thanks for joining in. Hope you're having a beautiful right now. And as always, I wish you tremendous peace and love. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.